Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. Let's start with some affirmations. Everybody smile, take a deep breath, and affirm after me. I am average. Together. I am average. I am ordinary. Together. I am ordinary. I am not special. Together. I am not special. Now turn to your neighbor and say, you are average, ordinary, and not special. Okay. All right. So, how many people were not that inspired with those affirmations? How many people didn't like or even resisted saying them? Anybody? Okay, let's try some other ones. Deep breath, big smile. I am exceptional. Together. I am exceptional. I am extraordinary. I am special. Turn to your neighbor and say, you are exceptional, extraordinary, and special. All right. So, how many people noticed a big difference in the energy and the joy? And so, here's my thing. So when I said to say I am average, what kind of feelings came up? Because I would suggest that sometimes being called average feels disappointing. It feels subpar. It feels inadequate. It doesn't feel like we are good enough. In our culture, average has become the standard of failure at some level, or at least mediocrity, or settling, or just not being enough. If I wrote a book entitled How to Live an Average Mediocre Life, I don't think anyone would buy my book. Even if I change the title to How to Live an Average Mediocre Happy Life, maybe 10 people would buy that book. See, we live in a world and a culture that praises, celebrates, demands, and expects the best. Expects the greatest, expects the extraordinary, for us to achieve amazing things and live exceptional and wonderful lives, from self-help books to personal growth, from Oprah to Deepak, from celebrities, from business tycoons, from politicians. We hear it all. Even in our spiritual teachings, we believe that we are unique, amazing creations of God with gifts, talents, and abilities within us, and we are here to do great things. On a daily basis, we are bombarded by social media on seeing exceptional things, exceptional people, exceptional plates of food, all these things, to the point that exceptional has become the norm. Exceptional has become kind of the definition of a good life, of happiness, and of success. So being average is well below our desire, our belief, and our cultural and personal expectations. It is great that we want to strive and achieve greater and better things and excellence and do things like make inventions and make this world a better place, share our talents and our gifts. But sometimes when we get hooked into the idea that a good life is equal to doing something exceptional and having only superlatives be said about us and what we do, that sometimes it can be a setup for dissatisfaction and disappointment. Alan Watts has this idea, and he says, whatever it is that we pursue in our lives, it is an affirmation that we lack it. And the more that we pursue it, the further we get from it. Whether it's pursuing happiness or pursuing money, it's affirming what we don't have and actually pushing us away from it. He calls it the backwards law. And it makes us more anxious, makes us more needy and desperate, and it actually makes us feel less fulfilled in the very thing we are seeking. So we're in the second of a 4-week series entitled The Art of Not Giving a Hoot. The counterintuitive approach to the good life. Owls are famous for hooting. And do you know what an actual hoot is? It is a decree and a claim about a particular territory that is desired by the owl and a warning to keep everybody else away. So when you say give a hoot, it is a declaration of that which is important to us. And sometimes we give a hoot to a lot of things that aren't healthy or important. We're still giving a hoot about the opportunity we missed 10 years ago in investing in some company. We're still giving a hoot about somebody who didn't say something to us. We're still giving a hoot about what we didn't get from our parents in terms of love. We're giving a hoot about a lot of things, and we deplete all our hoots because you only get so many hoots. And we got to think, where are you putting your hoots? And I mean, we need to ask ourselves, what do I give a hoot about? What is important to me? What is the thing I'm claiming and decreeing is valuable in my life? Because sometimes we give a hoot about minor things and it drains us from focusing on what's really important and valuable. And so last week we talked about don't try. We're always trying so hard. And sometimes we just need to accept life as it is. Sometimes we just need to embrace that pain is a part of the life. We need to love the process. Today we're going to talk about you're not special. So every one of us knows that we're created in the image and likeness of God already. We know we're all children of God. We know that we're the temple of the living God. That's pretty amazing. You are the light of the world. We are told all these things. That in and of itself is an incredible truth of our nature, of our potential, of our magnificence and beauty. It tells us all. You are created in the image and likeness of the energy and the intelligence that created the sun. That brilliance and energy and love created every cell of your being. Is that not magnificent? And yet we want to add, I am a special child of God. I'm an amazing child of God. I'm an extraordinary child of God. You already are. But we're fighting and giving a hoot about the label. Somebody once said, you are unique and special, just like everyone else. We're fighting for special when we already are. And so we need to not give a hoot so much about this label of exceptional, this label about, special and extraordinary, and just be. Express that which is already in us. Oprah Winfrey's done thousands and thousands and thousands of interviews. Kings, wealthy people, presidents, the poor, everybody. She says every one of them have one thing in common. One thing in common after the end of every single interview. Everyone said this in some form. Was that okay? Did I do good enough? Did it sound all right? How was I? Every single person wondered if they were good enough. And the reason we want those superlatives by our name, because at some level we wonder, am I really enough? Do I need to do something extraordinary for someone to love me? Or for me to think I'm okay? Because at some level, I'm not sure if we all realize that we are enough. We need to prove ourselves and keep doing these things so people will love us. Let me give you a couple of stories of a couple individuals. In 1983, this young guitarist got kicked out of his band. They had just been signed by a record label, just about to record their first album, when he was unceremoniously dumped. No warning, no discussion. They gave him a ticket back to New York from Los Angeles. On the bus ride, he bawled his eyes out. He cried. He wondered, why. And so by the time the bus got to New York, he said, I'm going to create my own band. I'm going to do good. So he got some great musicians together, wrote some great songs. The first album went gold. They ultimately, in their career, ended up selling 25 million albums. The guy's name was Dave Mustaine, and the group he created was called Megadeth. I don't know heavy metal that well, but 25 million people do. So the band he was kicked out of was called Metallica, who sold 180 million albums worldwide and was considered one of the best bands in history. So interestingly, in an interview in 2003, 30 years after he got kicked out of the band and had great success with Megadeth, Dave said, "I still consider myself a failure. Despite all of his success, all of his achievements, all of him not giving up, he was still hurting after 30 decades and labeled himself a failure." 1962, another young man got kicked out of his band. He was a drummer. They just signed their deal. They were just about to record their first album. And Pete Best got kicked out of a band, obviously, called the Beatles, replaced by Ringo Starr. Pete Best was devastated. He was depressed. His life wasn't going well for a good long time. And in 1994, he was interviewed, and he said that he was happy and happier that he wasn't a part of the Beatles. Not as sour grapes as "I didn't need you anyway" and didn't like it. He said the reason is because he found what was really meaningful for him. He met this incredible woman that changed his life. They had kids. He's got a great family, a simple life, and he really, really feels happy and at peace. He still drummed. They did some touring in Europe all the way into the 2000s. He never had the great success of Megadeth, but you know what? He was happy. And so my point of this is, at some level, Dave Mustaine with Megadeth literally didn't think he was enough to let himself give. He defined his success as needing to sell at least 180 million albums and didn't believe he was enough in and of himself to call himself successful or happy. And Pete Best realized he was enough, and a happy life was enough. And so notice the difference of their definitions for them of what was being successful, what happiness means. And my question for you is, what definition of success are you making for yourself? Dave Mustaine created such a high standard, there was no way he could be happy. And Pete Best realized what was valuable and important to him. Some ways, the pressure to be extraordinary, to be the best, to be a success, can get us to places, where we struggle personally. We feel like failures. I was in a class the other day, and a woman said to me, with all these spiritual principles, I know they all work, but I'm not working them. I'm not feeling joy. I don't have a lot of prosperity. I feel like a failure. And we may not all get it right, but we are always enough. We hold ourselves sometimes to very, very high standards, and sometimes they are not very healthy. Sometimes we think we need to make ourselves superior or feel inferior, and that isn't the truth. We aren't here to show that we're special. We're here to live and honor the truth of heart. And the basic fundamental is you're enough. You are enough. Dave was enough before Megadeth. He was enough after Megadeth, but he didn't believe it. I am enough. Together. I am enough. I was born enough. I was born enough. God made me enough. I will always be enough. Even when I make mistakes, I'm enough. I am enough. Take a deep breath. Turn to the person to your left and right and say, you are enough. Okay, that's enough. So the first thing about this whole idea that you're not special is you're not here to show you're special, but you are here to know and live from the truth that you're enough, that you're always enough. The second one, instead of focusing on special and doing extraordinary, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, am I being true to myself? Am I being honest and authentic with myself and the people closest to me about who I am and what's really going on inside of me? That's the question we need to ask. To ask, am I really living the life I'm supposed to live and being the person I'm meant to be? E.E. Cummings once said, it takes a lot of courage to grow up to be who you really are. Because we don't always get the support. Sometimes being different is seen as a good thing, and sometimes it's seen as not a good thing. And sometimes we conform and stay within that. Everybody know who Barry Sanders is? Former running back of the Detroit Lions, considered the best running back at the time. He retired in his prime. He was only 1,400 yards away from having the record, from doing something extraordinary, being the greatest running back ever. He retired because he was true to himself. He didn't care about numbers, he cared about being happy. It isn't always easy to make decisions that are true to ourselves because some people may not support it or agree. One of the most moving interviews I ever saw many years ago was about this transgendered individual. Lived in the Northwest. He was as handsome as ever. He was a teacher, one of the most popular teachers. He was the softball coach or one of the coaches. They loved him. His wife was gorgeous. Their children are gorgeous. He got all kinds of awards. They were like the couple in their neighborhood. And then he came out and lost his job, lost many of his friends. His wife was very understanding and supportive. And in the interview, I remember the interview saying, your life was so perfect. You're so beautiful, and your family and all these awards. That was a great, perfect life. And he said, yeah, it looked pretty on the outside, but I was dying on the inside. And I'll never forget that. That was like 20-something years ago I saw that interview. And the fact is, sometimes we have lives that look this way, but we aren't being true, and it's killing us inside. I know people who've been engineers and doctors and lawyers because that's what their parents expected of them. And finally, they let go of those jobs to do what really, really fed them and made them feel fulfilled. Madame Curie, back in the late 1800s, loved science. And at a time where for women, that was just not, something that was acceptable. She went on to win the first Nobel Prize of any woman in 1903 for physics. 8 years later, she went to be the first woman ever to win a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry. She was the first woman professor ever at the University of Paris. Here's what she wrote. Life isn't easy for any of us, but so what? You must have perseverance and above all, have confidence in yourself. We must believe that we are gifted for something and that thing must be attained. And it is that thing that is important. It's not about a Nobel Prize. It's not about making millions of dollars. It's not about finding necessarily a cure for cancer or being the next Steve Jobs, Martin Luther King, or Tom Brady. It's about being true to yourself. The worst thing I think we do to ourselves is to compare ourselves to other people. Comparing our money, comparing our job, comparing our status. If we compare our acting skills to Denzel Washington, if we compare our singing to Celine Dion, if we compare our financial success to Bill Gates, we're going to suffer every time. It is not a good and healthy thing for us to do. The most important thing is to be true to who you are and who you came to be. My mom didn't finish high school. My mom had asthma. She wasn't, the healthiest kid. She wasn't active. My mom didn't write a book. My mom didn't do anything extraordinary. except maybe having 10 kids. That's pretty extraordinary. And the thing is that this woman probably changed my life more than any other human being. All of her 10 children love and adore her. She's been gone 10 years, and we still are inspired by the lessons and the way she lived and the kind of person she was. All of her grandkids still love and adore her greatly. She started driving at 65, painting at 68, skydiving at 75, dog sledding at 80. She sent her first email at 83. We can't compare her to Madame Curie. But we shouldn't. I just think God did two amazing versions of incredible. In fact, God does amazing versions of incredible in every human being alive. We don't need to compare. My mom was the best of who she came here to be, and I'm a better man and person because of it. And so we don't need to compare who we are. The question is, are you being true to you? What is it that you are being called to do or be? You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You just need to be true to who you really are. I saw a sign that once said, be yourself. Everyone is already taken. So let's look at the last one about, you're not special. That's not what we should focus on. What we should focus on is just connecting with others. Louis Armstrong wrote a song, and the lines are, nobody knows the troubles I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Sometimes when we're struggling and we're in pain, we feel like nobody is there for us, that we're alone. Nobody understands our hurts. Nobody's there for me to really get what it is that I'm really going through. And sometimes it's overwhelming and it's excruciatingly painful. But the fact is, I guarantee, whatever it is any of us are feeling and have felt, somebody else has felt it. We think we're alone in that way. We're a lot more common than we realize. I remember when I was struggling as a minister in my 3rd year, I didn't know what I believed. I was really struggling. I was thinking, maybe I'm a Buddhist. I don't know if I even believe in God. What's going on? And I was struggling with myself as I'm trying to serve the congregation in Kansas City at the time. And then somehow I came across an article by Mother Teresa, and in it she said she struggled in her belief of God. She wondered if she was doing the right thing. She wondered if she was a good person. And I got to tell you, I felt so good reading that. Not that another person was suffering, but she got it. It's like, I'm not alone. That we as human beings struggle in some areas at times. And sometimes I think it brings us a lot of comfort to connect on that human level, not to dwell, but to understand and have compassion and support for one another. And to not ignore and pretend that everything's okay, but to really be present and available for each other. I speak about my friend Dave a lot. He's the guy that we toast with Twinkies and drink a bottle of Miller High Life, and our toast is always the same, to new beginnings. He is a great, great friend. He's the guy we'd go on pontoon boats when I lived at Unity Village. There was a lake there, and we'd be on this pontoon boat, and it's beautiful scenery. The trees and stuff. And he says, see that? God made that just for me. And I don't have to take care of it. That was my favorite. And you got to leave a voice message to be, hi, this is Dave. Leave a message. You're going to be glad you did. He's the guy who taught me how to go out for breakfast, because when you're one of 10 kids, you don't go out for breakfast. So it was my first time ever. Every Saturday when there's a sports event on, he knows I don't watch TV on Saturday. I'm preparing my talk. He always texts me the score or texts me an update on what's going on. Even last night he did it. But this wonderful friendship that's got filled with laughter and joy actually had its basis in a deeper sharing. When we met in 1994 at Unity Village, he had just lost his dad and I lost my dad. And we shared how painful an experience it was and how much we missed our dads. We shared about the experiences we had. We shared about the things we wish we'd said and the relationship we wished we had. And we cried, and we shared, and just opened our heart. And I think it's that vulnerability and connection that creates the foundation of this fabulous relationship that we have today. You know, every one of us is here. I know he's got my back, and I have his. Every one of us hurts. Every one of us goes through difficulties. That's why I believe so much in AA, that people don't have to go through that struggle alone, that just knowing that someone else is there that cares, it makes a difference. We have a group here called Helping Parents Heal, for parents who have lost kids. That is the most devastating thing, I think, any parent or family. And we have those groups because they make a difference. I love support groups. I love circle groups because it helps us connect with our common humanity and the struggle that we all want. And our fear is, am I alone? Does anybody really care or understand? And the answer is yes. But we need to reach out and be willing to be vulnerable and honest about where we are. Because ultimately it's that connection. We want to feel special and different, but we also know that to feel common, to feel that oneness is one of the most valuable and important things. We all want to be loved. We all want to care and be cared for. That is the most important thing. Last week I had an interesting thing happen. I shared this with my prosperity class. So I went out a week ago Thursday in my backyard under my little putting green area. There was a little bunny. And the little bunny, his back leg was snapped right off. It was just flobbling inside its skin, of course, but it was just hobbling. And I just saw it, and my heart just went out to the little guy. And I'd go out every 10 or 15 minutes to see if he's still there, and he was still there. And I was just heartbroken about the whole thing. And then so later put a carrot and some lettuce out for it. In fact, a friend came over and we sat outside because they couldn't go too far. And it was so cute to have the bunny right next to us and just talk and say hi. It was a really, really cool experience. And so I thought I better do something. So I tried to call the wildlife preserve. Someone actually gave me the phone number of it. And they said, you know, we'll be happy to, but we can't come get it. You have to come bring it to us. I said, well, I can't physically actually do that, but I'll figure something out. So I called someone, and they came and brought a little trap, and he finally went in the trap. And so I tried to call I called the Humane Society, and they came, and when the lady was walking towards him, he ran and hid in the in my shed. And she said, well, you got to go get him, and then we'll come pick him up. I later learned that they were going to euthanize him, and I thought, good for you, little bunny, for running so fast. Even without a leg, that you turned it on, kiddo. So anyway, this went back and forth for a couple of days, and finally I called the Humane Society and said, look, can you guys pick up the bunny, but take it to the wildlife place? I don't want it euthanized. And then so they brought a lady, her name was Jessica, and she was so sweet with the bunny and so gentle. I was in awe of that whole experience. And then they took the bunny away. So I miss the bunny so much. I called them and said, hey, after you repair the bunny, can you bring him back and I'll take care of him? And they said, no, that it's wildlife and we don't do that. And I don't know what got into me, but I almost said, can you just tell him I love him? And it was just like, I'm not a pet guy. I don't know what happened. And I just gotta say, I think it was just love. The little bunny touched my heart so much and brightened my day that I just felt an extraordinary feeling of love. And just like that bunny, I think we're all here to care for each other and to be cared for by each other. It's ultimately what we're looking for. There's nothing more extraordinary, there's nothing more exceptional or special than to open your heart and care about another human being. To open your heart, and just share and have compassion. And it literally made such a difference in my life. Who'd have thought just 4 days of seeing a bunny would literally make me feel joy and open my heart in an amazing way. How many people know what the bell curve is? You know the bell curve? Everybody wants to be in the 90th percentile. You want your kid to be exceptional in the 90th, we all do. But the majority of life and human beings live in the middle of the bell curve, in the average area, in the ordinary area. And my question for you is, would you be okay and would you feel like you're enough if you spent your whole life in the bell curve area? Would you be able to be true to yourself if you were in the bell curve area? And would you be able to love and connect with people compassionately and be vulnerable and support and share if your life was in that average area? And my answer would be yes. That we need to stop giving a hoot about special and extraordinary and start putting our focus and our attention on realizing that I'm enough. Realizing that, am I really being true to myself and living the life I'm meant to be? And am I reaching out and caring and allowing myself to be cared for by other people? Because if we do, to me, that's the path to living a good life. And those three things, am I enough? Being true to yourself and having connection and compassion for others, those are three things that I think are definitely worth giving a hoot. God bless you.